Hello everybody and welcome to today's Riftbound video. For today's topic we are going to be looking at how you build a deck. We're not going to be diving too deep into the strategy or the specifics of building competitive decks. This is just to give you an understanding of the deck building rules so that you can get competent enough that when you want to start exploring things you'll be able to dive straight to it. We will be using Piltover Archive's website, which is a fantastic website that you can register, create decks on, look up other users' decks. There's a whole bunch of really cool stuff, and it is probably the best tool online right now for you to build out your decks and effectively get familiar with the game as quickly as possible. So with that all said and done, let's jump into it. When we're on the Piltover Archive website, we want to go ahead and build decks. We can see when we hover over it, after we're logged in of course, that we can go to the deck builder, we can look at the library, or we can look at decks we've already built. So for example, we could jump into the library and we've got all the users decks. We can sort ourselves out based on what legend it is, and we can use this as a basis of the decks that we may or may not want to play. You can have an explorer of that tool yourself, but what we're going to do is jump right in and build our own deck. It's not going to be a good deck, but it's going to explain all of the rules. There are deck building requirements, which Piltover Archive has this very handy tool which tells you what you need to do in order to make your deck legal. First, we need a legend. The legend will dictate which domains you are allowed to play. Domains are colors. So it's very important that you take a look at your legend. There are some legends that have the same colors on them and they do different things. They are going to affect how you build your deck and your chosen champion, but I will explain what that is in a moment. So if we come through, we can see all of our different cards. We have our alternate arts, so we can get familiar with what everything is. And then for this video, we're going to go ahead and choose Teemo because everybody's been bullied by a Teemo at least once in their life. And if you've not played League of Legends, you're probably going to get bullied by Teemo some more over here. So we've picked our legend, and we can see the first green check has come up, which says we have a legend selected. Champion, you can choose a champion that matches the name of your legend. In this case, Teemo. We can choose any Teemo card, and we've got two to choose from. This is just an alternate art of our Yordle Explorer. So we can play this Teemo, or we can play Teemo Strategist. For this case, we will choose Teemo Scout, and that will be our champion. That will go in our champion slot. So we now have a champion that's legal. We now need 39 more cards because our champion does take up one card in the deck. So we're just going to go through and chuck 39 cards in the deck. Like again, this is not how you build a deck. This is just to show how the platform works. So we'll go through and just play everything. Be funny if you did this and then went ahead and won a tournament with it, in which case you can give me credit because the deck is completely unplayable. And now we can see that we have 40 cards. We have our champion, we have our legend, and we come over to the next part, which is really important, battlefields. Battlefields is probably one of the most exciting parts about Riftbound. Each of these battlefields have a different effect, and you're going to have one in play and your opponent is going to have one in play. And during a best of 3 game, you have 3 battlefields. You can play on each of your chosen battlefields once. So for example, let's say we had these 3. If we used Altar of Unity for game 1, we wouldn't be able to use this for game 2, so we'd have to choose Aspirant's Climb or Back Alley Bar. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of them. They all have very different effects and they are going to impact deck building. I actually think battlefields impact side decking and generally a lot of the decisions in your deck a lot more than your legend does, because you need to be thinking about how you're going to be scoring points, and it's a real skill to get into, but we'll dive into the real nitty-gritty and strategies in future videos. Once we've chosen our 3 battlefields, we'll see that gets checked, and then we come over to runes. You will play runes that match the legend that you've chosen. So if you remember, we are the Swift Scout Teemo, so we are allowed to play the Chaos or the Mind, or blue and purple. To do this, we can play any split that we want, but it has to be 12 runes. No more, no less, and we're not allowed to change these after we've locked them in. So if we're playing in a tournament, we can't, for example, side deck 3 Chaos runes to then change our split. A lot of people when starting out, and I highly recommend it, is to go 6-6. This gives you a very good split and means that you're likely to see a good mix of the colors when you are channeling runes for your turn. But what you'll start to find when you start getting better at the game is when you start making choices, you'll figure out where am I spending my power costs, and in that case you might decide, for example, to see it won't even let me put more than 12 runes in. We might decide actually we want to be 7-5 because we spend more chaos. We might be even more into chaos, or you could end up just playing mono. You can still play cards that don't share a color with the runes that you have. So for example, if we take a look at our cards and we'll go Mine Chaos, let's say we only had purple runes in the deck. There's no power costs on this, so we could still play all of the calm cards, the blue cards, without actually having any blue runes. Now, the difference being that if, for example, we had power cost, which is signified by this little blue pip here, which says then we have to recycle a mine rune, which is just where you take the rune and put it to the bottom of your rune deck. We wouldn't be able to play that if our deck was only full of purple. And a really big part of the skill for this game is understanding when to spend power and what you're achieving by spending that power, because it does change the flow of the game. But again, that's sort of more getting into the nitty-gritty strategy. And you can see some cards had double power costs. There is a card in the game that has a triple power cost. I'm just looking for Grand Stratagem here. And all of these different power costs will dictate what kind of split you want to have for your runes when you are building out your rune deck. So do take in consideration how much power your deck is spending, when your deck is spending the power, and what kind of split that you need in order to make it work. And that's generally all there is to it. The only other thing to consider is if you're playing best of 3 matches, you will choose 0 or 8 cards, and then effectively you can go ahead and put these in your side deck. So in between games 2 and 3, you can then swap cards from your main deck into your side deck, and you do this on a 1-for-1 basis. You can change your chosen champion. So say if we're playing the green Ori in our main deck, we could have the blue Ori in our side deck, and we could swap those in between games. But game 1, if we registered a deck with a green Ori, we have to play green Ori. This one's a cheesy Time Warp deck that was played at a China regional, and it did really well. It made top 8, which was incredible because it had not done well. Another cool thing about Piltover Archive is some people will upload their YouTube videos so you can sort of see the deck in action. There are other people that will leave you kind notes, which will basically explain how the deck works or different things, and gives you kind of advice on what's going on. I recommend playing around with this and maybe playing some of the other players' decks if you want to get started as quickly as possible. Then when you understand what works, what doesn't work, you'll be in a great position to go ahead and use the deck builder and then just start building your own decks and saving them off. And that's really all there is to it. Once you know that, you can build your decks and you can get into Riftbound as quickly as possible. I recommend playing on TCG Arena, or you can play it on Tabletop Simulator. That's actually where most of the big online tournaments are. But we do have a Discord server which plays on both. So if you want to go ahead and join our community, we've got a link down below. It's just designed for people to do tournament testing, get better at the game, and generally have a good time. We're a good group. It's the Riftbound testing and chill server, and it is basically that. It's a great place to be, to just have some banter and get better at the game. And we also run our server tournaments online as well, so you can come along and play and get some real hands-on experience before the game gets out and the real tournaments start, when the money and all the important stuff and the glory and the social clout becomes important. But we're going to wrap this one up here. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Like I said, we have other videos out there, so if you want to know exactly how to use the online tools or how to play the game specifically, you want to learn about decks and strategies, it's all going to be coming to this channel in the near future. So that's everything. We hope you've enjoyed this one, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.